How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we said Daf Gimel, Daf 3 of Masechta Kiddushin. Friends. Yo, friends, what up? Okay, yeah. I'll be honest, today's Daf gets a shtickle technical. But, gets a shtickle technical. But, alright, okay. But I think the main sugya of today is, we're starting to learn out, how do we know kesef? How do we know that a fellow could be mekadesh a woman bekesef? That's the main sugya. We're going to start with sort of something a little bit before that, but that's kind of the main sugya. Okay. I think I would like to get about halfway through Daled Amud Aleph. That's the truth. So hopefully that should be doable. And we're going to start actually halfway already down Gimel Amud Aleph. So a little bit more than halfway down Gimel Amud Aleph, there's the two dots, and that is where our tale begins. Minyana duration lemute mai. Minyana desefer lemute mai. Ooh, good cautious. Our Mishnah had said, Ha'isha niknes b'shalosh drachim, v'kones atzma b'shtei drachim. Our Mishnah had said that there are 3 ways for Kiddushin and 2 ways to, let's say, undo the Kiddushin. I'm going to take off my watch. I'll tell you, I'm shtickle tired. I'm schwitzy. I'm tired. Today was running around 7:15 at night, but it's good. Yeah, whatever. For whatever reason, I was running around today. I'm shtickle tired. But as we know from Babylon Talmud, that's all, it's rain or shine, tired, not tired, think straight, not think straight. We do it every day. Let's go weiter. So, the dates, the place where I go in Shuk Machne Yehuda to buy my nuts and things, the dates over there, I think I mentioned recently there could be a shtickle hit or miss. Hit these days. These days hit big time. Those dates are geschmack. If you want to know where I'm talking about, get in touch with me. I'll tell you where to go. Oof. For a long time they weren't. There was a big date slump for a while. At least where I go to one place. So when I go, I walk by, I take a look at the dates. I see, do they look like they're like full of honey and like sweet and sticky? If yes, then that's what I'm looking for. Otherwise they're just, they're okay. But dude, when they're good, they're good. They're good now. So when it says that there are 3 ways for Kiddushin and 2 ways, let's say, to undo Kiddushin, right, to be unmarried. So 3, what's a potential 4th that is being excluded? What's a potential 3rd way of undoing a marriage that's being excluded? So, I got to scratch my head. I got a haircut today. Yeah, basically at work, I kind of I'm waiting on some designs. So until I have those designs, I know I'm going to be really, really busy very, very soon. So I'm trying to get all the things out of the way that I'm not going to want to do when I'm busy. So I got a haircut today. Alright, anyways. I'm stalling. Okay, so when it says that there are 3 ways for Kiddushin, what's a potential 4th that's being excluded? When it says that there are 2 ways to be unmarried, what's a potential 3rd that's being excluded? So when we say that a woman can be betrothed with kesef, shtar, and bia to the exclusion of chuppah. To the exclusion of chuppah. Chuppah works for nisuin, chuppah does not work for Kiddushin, right? What does Rashi say? Right? It's chuppah she'im misarev lo avia lechuppah l'shem Kiddushin and mekudeshes b'chach, right? If she goes under the chuppah l'shem Kiddushin, that doesn't, that won't work. It has to be kesef, shtar, or bia. L'Rav Huna damer chuppah kone, mikal v'chomer. But what about according to Rav Huna, who, as we're going to learn in a few days, it says that chuppah taka is kone. So lemute mai, right? Learns that from a Chav Chomer. We'll see it in a few days. Lemute mai. So if you say that chuppah can be kone, well then what is a potential 4th that is being excluded? Lemute chalifin. Oh, to exclude a kinyan chalifin. To exclude a kinyan chalifin. I guess how that potentially might work is a fellow gives epis to the woman or the woman's father, or the girl's father, and they pick it up, and by doing so, the girl now, right, is nikne, right, b'kiddushin. So Sagdaiti Chamina hold the Gomar Kicha Mistefo, and after all, I may have thought that since we have this Gzeira Shava, right, Ki Yikach Yishisha Nosati Kesef Asona Kach Asoda Kach Mimeni, we have Gzeira Shava Kicha from Steefron. Masada Mekani B'Chalifin, Afisha Nami Mekani B'Chalifin. So I might think that there could be a kinyan on a field, B'Chalifin, right? You can make a kinyan on a field, a kinyan Chalifin. So I might think that also by marriage you can do a kinyan Chalifin Kamash Malon. So therefore our Mishnah is saying nisht. Kesef, Shtar, Bia, that's it. No Chalifin. Ve'ema Achi Nami. And why don't we say, one second, but what's wrong with Chalifin? Why don't we say Taka that? Say that, yeah, just like by a field, there could be a kinyan Chalifin, so by Kiddushin, there could be a kinyan Chalifin. So Chalifin isnu b'pachus mishaveh pruta. The problem is that Chalifin could be something less than a shaveh pruta, right? The way that a kinyan Chalifin works, right, is that, I don't know, how does it work? Shimon is selling a field to Reuven. Okay, so Shimon now owns the field, and what happens is Reuven gives epis to Shimon. Shimon picks up the thing, and by picking it up, he's transferring his field now to Reuven. Right? Reuven gives Shimon something to pick up. Shimon picks it up, and by doing so, right, just like he's taking ownership of this thing that Reuven gave him. Reuven's taking ownership of his field. Okay, and in that case, I think he then gives it back to Reuven. I think in general, But that thing that Reuven gives to Shimon doesn't have to be worth a shavah pruta. It could be less than a shavah pruta. And by doing so, so that kinyan can be affected with something that's less than a shavah pruta. And a woman is not going to be willing to get married for less than at least a pruta. All right, less than a shavah pruta. And because kinyan chalifin can happen with less than a shavah pruta, so since a kinyan chalifin can happen with something that's less than a shaveh pruta, it doesn't work. It has to be at least a shaveh pruta, right, which excludes kinyan chalifin. Minyana de seifa, and when we say that there are two ways for a woman to be unmarried, right, to be no longer married to this fellow, right, we said get or misas abal, lemute chalitza, to the exclusion of chalitza. Right? A woman cannot dissolve a marriage through chalitza. Right? A married couple, the woman, right? The woman can't do chalitza in order to be divorced. It's either a get or if he dies and she becomes a widow. Sakadati chamina, teisiv b'kal v'chomer. Well, but I have thought to say, well, why don't we make the following kal v'chomer? Mi yivama, from a yivama, ma yivama she'ena yotza beget yotza b'chalitza. A yivama who a get midoraisa doesn't work by a yivama. A get midoraisa doesn't work by yivama. Get doesn't work by yivama. But yotza b'chalitza, and yet chalitza does work by yivama. So a married couple, she yotza beget that, right? That she could, right? That a get works, and udin she yotza b'chalitza. Then certainly, chalitza should also work, kamash malan, and therefore we're saying that no. By a married couple, there are two ways for her to no longer be married, either a get or misas abal, not chalitza. But maybe I'll say chalitza taka should work to dissolve a marriage. On my cross, sefer krisus, sefer korsa, v'inda v'acher korsa. The pasuk says by divorce says sefer krisus, a book of divorce, sefer korsa, a written document, a get, is what dissolves the marriage. V'inda v'acher korsa, nothing else, not chalitza. Okay, fine. Big kesef. Our Mishnah had said that Kiddushin can be affected by kesef, by money. Minalon. How do we know that kesef can be used for Kiddushin? Okay, so we had mentioned kicha misteyefron. We're actually going to see that opinion tomorrow. But, okay, for now the Gemara wants to know, how do we know that kesef can be used for Kiddushin? Visu, and more so, Hoditznan. We learned in a Mishnah in Ksubis. Ha'avzaka bebito. A father merits in his daughter, B'kiddusha, with her Kiddushin, to receive her Kiddushin, B'kesef, B'shtayu, V'biyah, with, Izoche, with her Kiddushin, B'kesef, with kesef, bishtar, right, or that he can receive a shtar. So Rashi says zakabito shakesef yeh shalo, that the money dafka will be his, right? So zakabito b'kiddusha b'kesef. So back in the Gemara, that he can receive the kesef kiddushin on her behalf, bishtar, with a document. He can receive a document on his daughter's behalf of a bia, or he could say to her, go have bia with that fellow l'shem kiddushin. So minolon demikanya b'kesef v'kesef de'avuahu. So how do we know that kiddushin is bekesef, can be bekesef, and B, how do we know that kesef, that money belongs to the father? So Omar Rav Yehuda Omar Rab to Omar Kra, says Rav Yehuda Omar Rab, that the pasuk says v'yotzachinam ein kosef. It says by an amo ha'ivriya, that if a fellow sells his minor daughter to be a Jewish maidservant, so when she is 60, after 6 years, or when she reaches puberty, she goes free. And it says v'yotzachinam ein kosef, that she goes out free at that point. Ein kosef, and there's no money. Ein kesef la'adon zeh, there's no money when she leaves the when she leaves the whoa, who's making noise? Why you gotta make noise? I can't remember the word. When she leaves the house, let's say, of the adon, right? So in kesef adon zeh, right? So when she leaves the authority of her master, of the person that whose house she was working in, so there's no money, right? It says v'yotzachinam ein kosef, she goes free. There's no money goes to the master. Aval yesh kesef la'adon acher, but there is, right? V'yotzachinam ein kosef, there's no kesef, right? Rashi says the word ein kesef is extra, right? So could you say v'yotzachinam, she goes free, but it says ein kosef, there's no money. To learn from that, there's no money when she goes free from her master, but there is money in a different place where she goes out of the authority of her father when she gets married. And when she gets married, she was saying, so v'yotzachinam ein kesef, there's no kesef to her master when she's a shifcha kanai, an amma ivriya, but there is, however, money when she leaves the authority of her father when she gets married. So umanihu of, and that is referring to when she leaves her father's house when she gets married, and in that case, there is money. There's no money when she is no longer in Amma Ivriya. There is money, however, when she gets married and leaves her father's authority. So we see that Kiddushin can be affected by money. Ve'ema ledida, why don't we say that she gets the money? Right? So Enochinami, right? So we could say that Kiddushin could be bekesef, but how do we know that the money goes to her father? Maybe the money goes to her. So Achiyashta avia mikabel kiddusheho, tichsiv es biti nosati lisa zeh. Well, the pasuk says by motzi shemra, right? If a fellow marries a basula, or he thinks he married a basula, and now he's saying that she wasn't a basula. So in that context, the pasuk says that the father says, "As biti nosati lisa zeh, I gave my daughter to this fellow." I.e., right? He is mikabel the kiddushin, right? He can affect the kiddushin on her behalf. Ve'i shakla kaspa, and yet she's getting the money. It can't be. So it can't be, right. So we said that money, that money can affect kiddushin. The question is, maybe the money goes to her, but we know that he can affect, right? He could be, right. What is the word that I'm thinking of? I don't know. Okay. So, right. So he can be, right, marry off his daughter. So how could it be, I just said this, right? As how could it be that he can give over his daughter for marriage, and yet she is the one who gets the money in the end? But maybe I'll say that, okay, fine, by a kitana. Maybe if he marries off his daughter who's a kitana, that she doesn't have da'as, she doesn't have, right, isn't developed enough intellectually to know, or she doesn't have das, she doesn't have knowledge, she doesn't have understanding, and therefore if her father marries her off when she's a ketana, so then her father will also get the money. But a naira the isla yad l'kabel kiddushin, that a naira does have da'as, and she would theoretically. Now I don't know if this means that she is able to accept kesef kiddushin on her own. I'm not sure about that. I hope that it'll become clear soon. But she at least has das. She has enough understanding in order to affect transactions and understand financial things, and therefore I would say that she should be able to accept her own kesef kiddushin. So taktish nafsha v'tishkol kaspa, she should be able to be mekadesh herself, and she should be able to get married on her own, and she should be able to receive the money herself. So on my cross, so the pasuk says no, even by a naira, she doesn't receive the money, because the pasuk says binureh beis avia, that the pasuk says as we're going to see that it's dafka in the context of if she makes nidarim and shvuas. So it says binureh beis avia when she's a naira. So kol shvach neurim leavia, that all of the benefits of her being a naira goes to her father. So therefore, even if she's a naira, the kesef kiddushin would go to her father. But ve'elaha to amr Rafuna. But 1 second. So if we're learning out from binureh beis avia that any benefit of when she's a naira goes to her father, including the kesef kiddushin. Well, hada amr Rafuna, when Rafuna says amar Rav, the name of Rav, minayin shemaise abbas la'av. How do we know that the things that a daughter makes goes to her father? Shenemar v'chi. Excuse me. V'chiyimkor is ish as bito la'ama. That the pasuk says that if a fellow sells his daughter to be an amma, ma'ama ma'aseh yodea l'rabba, just like an amma, the stuff that she makes goes to her master. Af bas nami ma'aseh yodea l'avia. So also a daughter, her ma'aseh yodea goes to her father. So typically, mi binureh beis avia. But why not? If we're saying that binureh beis avia means that as long as she's a naira, everything goes to her father. Kol shvach neurim leavia. All the benefits of her being a naira goes to her father. So then why? So if we want to know, how do we know that the ma'aseh yodayim of the daughter goes to her father? So why don't we just learn it out from binureh beis avia? Rather, the reason why you cannot learn out ma'aseh yodayim from binureh beis avia is because binureh beis avia, that pasuk is in the context of nidarim, that it can be made for her nidarim. So achanami b'afaris nidarim u'dichsev. So also the pasuk of binureh beis avia is talking about faris nidarim. It's not talking about kesef kiddushin. We can't say that you can accept that the father receives the kesef kiddushin for a naira because of binureh beis avia. Binureh beis avia is talking about him being able to be made for nidarim. It doesn't mean that he can accept her kesef kiddushin. V'chiteman, if you're going to say neilaf minei, and if you're going to say that, okay, fine, so it says binureh beis avia means that her father can be made for a nidarim, so say that just like her father can be made for a nidarim, so you also can receive kesef kiddushin. Mamona me'isura lo yalfinu. But we don't learn out mamon, which is the kesef kiddushin, me'isura from what's it called? From being made for nadar. From being made for nadar. V'chitema, and if you're going to say neilaf miknaso, and if you're going to say learn out from the knas, which knas? By onus. That if it's a situation of onus, a fellow is ma'anes a besula, so then he gets fined, and that money goes to the father. But mamona miknasa lo yalfinon. That I mean, if she's a ketana or a naira, so then that money goes to the father. So, but mamona miknasa lo yalfinon. But we can't say that just like he gets the money of that knas, so then he also gets the kesef kiddushin, because kesef kiddushin is mamon, and the fine by onus is a fine. We can't learn it out from a fine. Maybe we'll say that we can learn it out from Boshes Pagam, that a fellow who's ma'anes a basula, so he also the fellow needs to pay Boshes and Pagam, right? Embarrassment and the fact that he sort of lowered her value by doing this, and that money would go to the father. So shiny Boshes Pagam davu shaykh b'gavai, but by Boshes Pagam, that's something that the father is shaykh to. Rashi says that if he wants, he could marry her off to a manuval or a mukashchin, right? Which would be sort of embarrassing and degrading. So because kind of that's his, I guess he has a connection to the Boshes Pagam, and now this fellow, by being ma'aneser, is kind of taking that away from him, I guess. So therefore it makes sense that it would go to him, but that is nothing, right? That's specific to Boshes Pagam, but that wouldn't necessarily be the case by Kesef Kiddushin. Okay. Al Mistavra, okay, but rather the Chika Mimayit, Yetzir de Chavasa Ka Mimayit. But rather we say, look, the Pasuk says V'yatzachino mein Kasef, that by an Amma Ivriya, when she leaves her master, there's no money. And we're saying that it would make sense that when we're saying that there's no money to the master when it comes to Nama Ivriya, but there is money, however, in a different case, it would make sense that we compare them in the same ways. That just like by the Amma Ivriya when she goes free, there's no money being given to her master, to the exclusion of by Kiddushin, that when she gets married, there is money that goes to her father, right? The analogy, right? The equivalence of the master in the case of the Amma Ivriya would be the father in the case of Kiddushin. And we're saying that by the Amma Ivriya, there's no money that goes to the master, but by Kiddushin, there is money that goes to the father. V'alo damya. But though we can't really compare when she leaves her father's house because she got married to when she leaves the master's house because she's no longer an Amr Ivriya. When it comes to when she's no longer an Amr Ivriya, she leaves the house of the master entirely. She's gone. She's out. But when this girl, right, is betrothed, she's not, right, she's an Irish, she's not entirely removed from her father's authority. Her father can, until she gets married, until Nisuin, her father can still inherit her. Her father still gets the benefit of her Ma'aseh Yadayim. So she's not entirely, right, it's not analogous to the case of the Amor Ivriya that she entirely goes free from her master. Here she's not, by the Kiddushin, she doesn't entirely leave the authority of her father. Father still inherits her. Father still zocher to the Ma'aseh Yadayim. But ba'afaris nedarim mia nafkala merishuse. Yeah, but when it comes to afaris nedarim, her father no longer alone is able to be made for a nedarim. He can only do that together with her fiance, and therefore, in that way, she's no longer solely in her father's authority with regard to afaris nedarim. The Tanan is we learn in a Mishnah in Ksubis, I think, or Nidar. Naira Marasa Avia Uvaila Mefir Nidara. That by Naira Marasa, her father together with her fiance are the ones who can be made for her Nidarim, but the father cannot be made for her Nidarim alone. But now, fact the Gemara, V'hai v'yatzachinam lahachi u'de'asa. 1 second. This pasuk of v'yatzachinam ein kasef, which we're saying teaches us that there's kesef kiddushin, right? That kiddushin can be bekesef, and that the money goes to the father. Is that really what this pasuk is for? We need v'yatzachinam ein kasef for the following brisa. The Tanya is we learn the brisa v'yatzachinam elu yimei bagris ein kasef elu yimei nairis. That how do we know when an Amma Ivriya goes free? Well, it says v'yatza chinam. That's referring to when she's a bogeris. When she's a bogeris, she goes free. Ein kasef elimei nairus, and ein kasef means that already when she's a naira, she goes free. Now the Gemara tomorrow at the beginning of the daf is going to ask, I don't understand. If she's already free once she's a naira, obviously she's already free by the time she's a boger. So it doesn't mean she goes free when she's a boger. She's already free from the time she's a naira. But beseder. Okay. So the pasuk of Yotzachinam Ein Kasev is to teach us be'etzim that she can already go free when she is a naira. But it doesn't teach us that there's kesef, right? That Kiddushin can be affected by kesef and that it goes to the father. Amar Ravina, Im kain lema kra ein kasef. If it was only coming to teach that she goes free as a naira, then it would say ein kasef without a yud. Aleph nun, no yud in the middle. My ein kasef, what does it mean ein kasef with a yud? Ein kasef ladon zeh, ava ish kasef ladon acher, umaniu. Of the fact that there's that yud there, it could have been written without a yud, as we're going to see soon. But because there's a yud in the word ein, it's essentially teaching us both things. It's teaching us that she goes free when she's an ayr, but it's also teaching us that ein kesef by this case, but there is kesef by kiddushin. And how do we know that we can learn something out from the yud? Titanias, we learn in a brayso, v'zera ein lo. The pasuk says by a bas kohen who marries a Yisrael. So a bas kohen is allowed to eat truma, but if she gets married to a Yisrael, she's no longer allowed to eat truma. If they get divorced or if he dies, she can go back home and continue eating truma now, right? As long as she's no longer married to that Yisrael. But if she has children, then she can't eat truma if her husband dies or they get divorced. If she has children with him. So v'zera ein lo. So as long as she doesn't have any children, she can go back home and eat truma. Ein li elazara, zera zara minayin. All I know is her immediate children. If she has children, then she can no longer, right, and then her husband dies or they get divorced, she can no longer eat, she can't go home and eat truma. If she has any children, she can't do that. Zera zara minayin. How do I know about that? This includes grandchildren. That even if her children passed away, but she has grandchildren, still she cannot go back home and eat truma. Tamalomar zera ein lo ayin lo. It says, right, Zera, she doesn't have any children. It says ein with an aleph, which means which we learn out ayin lo. Do your research in order to see if maybe she doesn't have any children, but maybe she has grandchildren. And all I know is that if she has children who are ksherim, zera pasul. What if she has a child who's a mamzer? Can she go back and eat truma? Tamaloma zera ein lo ayin lo. Right, it says zera ein lo with the yud, so we learn ayin lo, check and see if those children, right, even if they're mamzerim, then still, right, whoever they are, she would not be able to eat truma when she goes back home. But 1 second, we learned out from ayin lo that we have to check for grandchildren, not nothing to do with mamzerim and psulim. So zerazar lo itzurka. So upon further reflection, actually you don't need a pasuk to teach grandchildren because the pnei banim are in kibanim, because grandchildren are considered the same way as are considered like children, and therefore if she has grandchildren, so then certainly she would not be able to go home and eat truma anymore if she's a bas kohen married to a Yisrael and she has grandchildren, because they're like her children, and therefore she cannot go back to her father's house and eat truma. So ki itzdir kra, so I know that grandchildren are like children, so I don't need a pasuk for that. So I need the pasuk of ein ayin la. So the bnei banim arein kibanim. Wait, where am I? What? I'm sorry. Ki itzdir kra the zera pasul is to teach us about zera pasul, that even if she has zera pasul, she would not be able to eat truma and go back to her father's house and eat truma. How do we know that we should be making this drasha based on the yud in ein? So Amrei, they say ksiv. It says me'ein bilam. It says that Bilam was refusing. Right. That it was saying that Bilam was refusing to walk with the officers of Moab. So it says me'ein without a yud. Ume'en Yivami, right? In the context of Yivamos, by Chalitza it says that my Yavam doesn't want to do Yivim with me, so it says Me'en there also without a Yud. There's no Yud there. But over here, it says V'yotzachinam ein kosef, or V'zera ein la, there's a Yud. Shmamina l'Joshua also, so we see that the existence of the Yud is special, and it means that we can learn something from it. V'itzdich l'michtav kiddushel le'aviyah, v'itzdich l'michtav ma'aseh yodeh le'aviyah. And we have to learn out both of these things, right? From V'yotzachinam ein kosef, we learned out that the kesef kiddushin goes to the father, and we also learned out from Right? We learned out that the Maaseh Yodel, the Maaseh Yodayim goes to the father. And so we need to know both these things. We need to know that Kesef Kiddushin goes to her father, and we need to know that Maaseh Yodel goes to her father. If it only said that her Kesef Kiddushin goes to her father. Okay, Beseder, look, it's not like she worked for the Kesef Kiddushin, so Beseder, it goes to the father. But her Maaseh Yodayim, the stuff that she makes, that she's working hard on, so maybe they should belong to her, she worked for them. And if we say that her Maaseh Yodayim goes to her father, because after all, he's supporting her, he's feeding her, he's giving her food, so okay, so the Maaseh Yodayim goes to him. It's a fair trade. But Kiddushin, which is coming from some external place, this guy is coming and giving them, Shaveh Pruta, so maybe, it doesn't automatically belong to the father. It could belong to her. Tzricha, therefore we say that no, the Kesef Kiddushin would belong to the father as well. Friends, that was Daf Gimel of Masechta Kiddushin. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out.